Taiwan as part of that approach to expand upon its relationships in the Pacific and serve as a role model for what a positive partner is. Nothing is more in Taiwan's interests than the United States being able to access the Western Pacific militarily. And the ability of the United States to bring naval and air forces to the Taiwan Strait and to the Western Pacific and East Asia, that is deterrence. That is the potential to stop Chinese invasion. The islands, what has made the islands strategically significant for centuries, is that they are the stepping stones to East Asia, and the ability, whoever controls, particularly in this era of hypersonic missiles and long-range anti-ship missiles, whoever has kind of control or denial of the key, most strategic islands in the Pacific, that power has a great deal of control and sway over which military moves in and out of the Western Pacific. And so, for the United States to be able to move large quantities of personnel and equipment from San Diego and from Hawaii to the Western Pacific, we have to have the ability to pass unfettered through Micronesia, through parts of Melanesia. Our ability to keep the supply lines to Australia open in the event of a conflict, that is very critical, obviously. And all of that, those sea lines of communication, those shipping lanes, all of those are abutted by the Pacific Islands. And so Taiwan has a direct interest in the United States being able to keep those sea lanes open, and that means keeping the islands out of the control of a hostile power. We always encourage Taiwan, as part of that approach, to expand upon its relationships in the Pacific and serve as a role model for what a positive partner is. Beijing offers a contrasting vision of partnership. It's a model that's based on predatory loans, domestic subversion, political interference, human rights violations, economic oppression in many ways. And Taiwan can offer an incredibly positive story that we should all be highlighting as a contrast with Beijing. The most effective way for us to be effective in the region is to have joint, consortium of countries, Japan, the US, Australia, New Zealand, Taiwan, working with international institutions like the Japan Bank for International Cooperation, working with some US institutions, the Asian Development Bank. Going through the list of places where our values and interests align, we should be working together to fund these infrastructure projects that China has consistently beaten us on. I think that one of the things that the next president, whoever that is in the US, is going to have a more aggressive approach to coordinating that type of big muscle movement on particularly on infrastructure between as part of we're talking about it now as part of the Quad, but it needs to be broader than that. And it needs to include Taiwan, and it needs to also not just focus on Southeast Asia, not just focus on mainland Asia, but also be focused on the small Pacific Island states. Yeah, so I think that the roadmap and the declaration, these are all very positive steps. There's a lot of continuity between the Trump administration and the Biden administration. A lot of the things that my administration began, the Biden administration has continued, and that's that's been very positive. I think where I have concerns, and I know some other folks who watch the region carefully have concerns, is that a lot of this has been rhetoric, it's been words. We have not seen some of the tangible progress that has to be made if we're going to stop China's ambitions. To me, in terms of your point about my recommendations, in terms of their aggressiveness versus where this administration is, I think part of this goes to a broader disagreement on China policy, and the fact that this administration continues with one hand to talk about taking a tough approach to China on various issues, but also leaving the door open for dialogue on climate change, for dialogue on other transnational issues, and they seem to have a challenge balancing their desire to do some of these larger bilateral issues with China with the very real fact that China is aggressively operating in the Pacific in a way that's counter to our interests and the interests of our friends. My preference is we prioritize core U.S. national interests, which require us to aggressively stand with our partners, whether it's Taiwan, whether it's with the Pacific Island states, Japan, and to me that's the number one fundamental U.S. interest at this point, is to strengthen those relationships, whether it's renewing the compact or it's increasing our cooperation with Taiwan or the Philippines. These are all part of the same larger U.S.-China relationship.
大纪元时报遍布全球，不受财团、政党影响，真实敢言。不管是想了解国际局势、两岸议题，或者想要寓教于乐、丰富人生，您需要的都在大纪元时报。订报专线0800566688。